Welcome to the podcast. So this one's a bit tricky because there are some sections which feature some sort of image analysis, such as waveform of the audio, that kind of thing, and overlay of what I feel is going on here. But hopefully, I'll put these as the thumbnail, and hopefully you can still. I mean, there's still plenty of content in here that you can grasp what I'm doing. It's more for illustrative and justifying the analysis than anything. I still run through the analysis like verbally, so hopefully you can get enough information from this. But thanks for listening. Hope you enjoy the episode. Normally, I can find a reasonable explanation for footage like this, an editing mistake, a technical issue, or simply something being misinterpreted. But this one proved more difficult. Regardless of our first impression of the video, we have to try and examine every video with the same open mind. It could be real or it could be false. Because there is an interesting question here. If genuinely extraordinary footage did exist, would we recognize it as real? Or would we immediately dismiss it as fake or AI simply because it showed us something completely outside our normal experience? Welcome back, and let's take a closer look at the latest Skinny Bob videos. So obviously the first thing I looked at in this video was, is this AI? So in terms of the sections of footage I analysed, I'll include them now. This is by no means exhaustive though, as I did analyse the entire three video film catalogue, just not all of it in a singular frame by frame analysis. And I'll state that I did not find any compelling evidence that these clips were AI generated. And I have to state that this is different from saying that they are authentic, which we'll come to later. So I picked these clips, which are the most likely to be AI for illustrative purposes. So for the frame by frame analysis, I literally went through frame by frame, looking for the usual signs of AI generation. I didn't rely on an AI model to make that judgment for me. I did check it with AI as well, and it also found no clear signs, but I don't fully trust AI to assess itself because it can and does make mistakes. What I was mainly looking for were the more complex parts of the footage, particularly where objects overlap or several things are moving at once. One example is the rope passing in front of the UFO. The rope, the helicopter, and the UFO all appear to be moving independently. So this is a prime example of something complex and prone to errors, whereby there are three independent movements in the image. So for this section, I couldn't see any obvious distortion, abnormal changes in shape, or inconsistencies in the movement. There was also no clear blurring or visible editing around the edges of the objects. So, for example, in this section, as the UFO exits the scene, there is a very minor warping for a split frame or two. But in all honesty, this is more likely to be a compression issue. This is the tricky thing with this video. It's low quality. It increases the difficulty in AI or editing detection. Ultimately, I don't think this is AI though. This doesn't completely rule out manual editing or composting. Again, the footage is very low quality, and if it had originally been created at a higher resolution and then deliberately degraded, some editing artifacts could have been hidden. However, given the amount of footage I examined frame by frame, I'm leaning towards this is not being AI generated, and I also found no obvious evidence that the UFO had simply been superimposed into the footage either. I've done the same analysis with other parts of the film, which contained the whole alien, for example, for which I arrived at the same conclusion. So this, I feel, is the first point. But again, this doesn't mean that it's authentic. The second point, whilst going through the footage, we can note what seems to be a date bar in the bottom left. And one of these comes up as 0231, so the 31st of February, which doesn't exist. This is the assumption that this is a date, and looking through the footage and looking at this kind of footage in general, it's the only firm conclusion I could come to for this data. But I think this could be kind of deliberate, and I'll come back to this at the end, as I think there may be a reason for this. The third thing I noticed was an anomaly around the alien's eye. Across these frames, the shape of the eye appears to stretch and distort slightly. So why didn't I count this as evidence of the AI in the first section? Mainly because it happens right at the edge of the image. Distortion near the edge of a frame is not unusual and can be caused by the lens scanning, stabilization, compression, or even very small movements between frames. But because of where it occurs, I don't think this is strong enough on its own to suggest AI involvement. Now, what is of note is this is more common in older equipment. Older equipment is a lot more susceptible to this. So, for example, in this UFO flight frame by frame, we can see static frames where the lighting ever so slightly changes. This is exactly what we'd expect from an old analog video being digitized. Static frames whereby lighting slightly alters. Again, this goes with the idea that this is old recording equipment. Also, with some of the other clips, frame stalling, light flicker, that kind of thing is consistent. So as a quick checklist so far, I don't think this is AI. I'm not entirely unconvinced that this hasn't had some sort of post-editing effects added. There is a strange date anomaly, and I'm even leaning towards this could have been recorded on older equipment. Not necessarily of this exact period in time. Remember, these were from the 40s through to the late 60s, but old equipment nonetheless. Now, this is where I have a little bit of an issue, as this does seem slightly overly consistent across these clips, that it could be the same equipment or similar for all these clips across a 20 or 30-year period that they were supposedly filmed. Now, I could delve into this further and properly check by counting the stalled frames, the light flickers, film grain, noise, compression artifacts, exposure level in different environments, lens behaviors, all that kind of thing, almost as a fingerprint for the recording device used across this. But that is very time consuming, and unfortunately I don't have as much time as I want to spend on this. I mean, who knows? Someday I might be able to delve into this stuff further in a lot more depth. But for now, time is a restriction. So, although I will know a merely passing glance over this, the frame borders, certain stalled frames, that kind of thing, they all seem consistent across all clips. Again, it kind of leads me purely as a guess, but these could have all been recorded on the same device, or at least very few, perhaps 2 or 3 different ones at most. But this is supposed to be over a 30-year period. But this is also where things start to change a little. Given these facts, a normal approach to analysis must be changed. First of all, comment below what were your initial thoughts on this video, and what's your opinions after watching the evidence I put forward. It would be very interesting, particularly if you change your mind throughout this video after viewing this in either way. In fact, I might convince people in the opposite conclusion of what I arrive at here. But if you're enjoying examining strange footage without immediately believing it or dismissing it, consider subscribing. That balanced approach is what this channel is all about. And if you found the analysis worthwhile, leaving a like genuinely helps YouTube show the video to more people. Ultimately, the aim isn't to tell you what to believe, but to examine the evidence properly and let you make up your own mind. And if you have any evidence that supports or challenges my interpretation, please share it in the comments. I'm always open to reconsidering the conclusion if new information comes to light. Looking at the aging on the film now, one thing was of note, this horizontal banding. So I did calculate these based on pixel locations. They occur across different sections of film. And that was in separate clips as well. So obviously there'd be some supposed difference in both temporal, so the time difference 20-30 years over this, and different recording devices assumed over this period. So I find this quite interesting. They do seem to have a pattern. These seem to repeat in the exact locations. So here we have set 1. These start at the same pixel height and end in the same pixel height, exactly 162 pixels, and a finish, I think it was 176 or 178. In between these, the frames show mostly an identical alignment with perhaps only 1 or 2 out by 1 pixel. But these could be measurement errors, as I visually marked these and didn't spend too much time on this, as I feel even 1 or 2 out are still beyond certain probabilities. There was also a set 2, which I've accidentally deleted, but it was the same as set 1. It was just a different location of the banding, but these 2 instances I examined aligned the same as this. But this was, you know, when you consider this, this was just one video out of the 3 films examined across different clips. So already this raises the brow, as it were. Further to this, they all lost exactly 4 frames that I examined, which again raises the brow. Further on to this effect, we can see also a highlight which lies outside the recording area of the screen. Now, this is very interesting because it gives me a rough idea of what might be going on here. If this banding came from film in a projection, I would expect it to continue more clearly across the surrounding dark area. Instead, it almost completely disappears as it reaches the black border, with only a few pixels showing faint changes at the same height. Because that area contains almost no contrast, my interpretation is that the banding was added after the footage had already been digitized. The effect remains obvious over the picture itself, but only slightly alters the few non-black pixels created by compression, by either compression scanning or the digitization process. That behavior seems more consistent with a digital overlay than with a band physically captured from a projector. But here we flip again. So it's clear this was supposed to be filmed from a projector. The softened edges, the screen slides with artifacts. There are artifacts in the film that do seem to be consistent as that from a projector. The observations of these artifacts are that they can be incredibly well defined, so don't align with the recording device. Some are in color, so again, don't align with the recording device. They all seem to be confined to the image though. They seem to only last about one frame, some a few at most, which says to me that they are more likely genuine than an overlay. What I can say, though, is if this was filmed directly with a camera from a projected image, there would have been some softening. There's numerous background analysis I've done into this, and instead of running through it all, it was quite intensive. Instead of running through it all, I just say I'm fairly sure this was likely recorded through a video output and something like a telescene machine. The artifacts are likely to be from the film itself. The higher definition artifacts align with recording from the output. The colour of these, mostly brown, while featured in a monochrome video, could be dirt or tobacco or a 24-bit RGB scan from a telescene. So where are we at now? I think this is non-AI. I think this was recorded on old equipment and played through something like a telescene projector, telescene machine, whilst being recorded via the video output of that device, with possibly an overlay effect showing some banding applied later, hinting at some sort of editing process. Now, here is where it got a bit heavy into the analysis. You see, video outputs on a telescene projector would not record audio from the projector running. So I looked into the audio to see if there was anything I could gather from this. And this is where we get a bit more clarity. This was hard, very painstakingly hard, but I analysed all the audio waves for each clip in both clips. So to start, I noticed that the audio and frame alignment was out. There were parts whereby the video ends X number of frames before the audio and then kicks back in. It returns back at different times to the audio as well. So in order to check that this wasn't just an audio visual misalignment, I checked each section which had a transition with a halt in audio. Some were 3 frames, some were half a frame, some were 2, and not in order like an increasing or decreasing misalignment. So this led me strongly to believe that the audio was added on top of the video, as its positioning within the video was strongly artificial. By that I mean human added, not necessarily AI. I think AI would have likely gotten this a bit more accurate. Then using a spectrogram and waveform, I concluded that the audio is definitely from the same device. Both have exactly the same frequencies. These are the horizontal bandings on the spectrograms. They're at 26.9 hertz, 166.9, 183, 204.6, 209.9, and 226.1. So going further into the waveform analysis, I found an alignment point overlaid each wave. As you can see here, they align almost exactly. I say almost as the amplitude differs. This is likely to be caused by some adjustments in audio volume, possibly through an editing process. I overlaid here, you can see in different colors, so this further highlights this alignment. But to be absolute on this, I looked into the individual waveform cycles and I recorded these in a video to show you on here. You can see this perfect alignment. So this shows the same audio was used in both clips. It was likely cut and edited as part of an editing process and the volume changes, but this is the same audio in both of the 2 films I examined. As a note though, I don't think this audio is AI generated. I think it's likely a recording of the telescene machine used in the production of this video, as the audio has been shown to be added post-production and not genuine as such, and other possible post-production overlays such as the banding. I think we have to say the reliability of this video has already gone. It's been edited in some form. So where are we now? We have a video that's not AI, recorded on an old-fashioned device, played back and recorded from something like a telescene machine with true errors in the film. I think there are visual overlays post-production, such as the banding. The audio was recorded likely from the telescene device and then added post-recording and pre-edit. So I'm leaning towards someone deliberately trying to create the most realistic fake video they possibly can here. Perhaps an art student as part of an art project who had access to older devices and was utilizing them. I think the date was added as a little director's sort of Easter egg, as it were. What of the content of the video? Well, this is tricky, as the quality of the video itself means it's hard to fully analyze the information in it, but there are certain things that raise the brow, as it were. So the hand caught my attention. If we look at the hand, there are certain biological features to consider here. The tendon is heavily visible on the respective alien index finger and thumb, but not on the alien's longest digits. This is odd. And I know the idea of comparing biology is slightly flawed here, but there is a tendon featured here. So we have to assume there is some similarity. So if the tendon was this heavily visible on the shorter digits, it would likely be more visible on the longer ones, as they need longer tendons. So this is inconsistent with current sort of biology, really. Another strange thing, which I visualized, and now I can't unsee it, is that this is likely a costume. And I've mapped out here where I think the person would actually be. As you can see, this fits nicely in a costume, and this is based on a muscular form, but for someone much skinnier, the fit would be even better. With line of sight through the mouth, potentially the nose, or as they're walking very slow, maybe none at all. Also, no motion shot is seen without some sort of covering over the neck. In the other scenes, it's hidden, such as lying down on the ground, the neckline isn't seen. In the head, I'm assuming there's some sort of animatronics for an eye movement, potentially controlled remotely. This is more speculation though, but it certainly does fit, especially when we consider this is an edited video using older camera equipment. And further to this, clips like this one, I think, come down to a forced perspective. It's a small object in the lens whilst the people are stood further away. This is a perfect example of camera trickery. And with all the clips of the UFOs, that kind of thing, I think these are all just camera tricks using angles and distance to replicate this. That's why there's no AI detection, as it isn't AI. And I'm fairly confident this was created by a media student. I've done a bit of background analysis on this, and again, it's not as interesting. It's reading things like the tags of the videos, interpreting the username, that kind of thing. And these were uploaded just before the final assessment period in about June, probably after they already submitted it for an assessment, maybe somewhere like, I don't know, the University of Virginia, and utilizing something like the Library of Congress Packard campus with access to the relevant machinery, with the creative idea to do this. I do think this is fantastic though, and I think whoever the student is, well done to you. It was very hard to scrutinize this. It came down to the audio, I think, was the main thing. You reused the same audio and also added that slight overlay, the banding, after digitizing the video. But well done. Well done for going old school with no AI, and well done for using older equipment and getting that realistic thing resulting to angles and the camera trickery. I hope you get a fantastic grade if you are a media student who's done this. I would love to know how the UFO was made though. I'm guessing some sort of miniature model made from something like a paper mache or something more, probably more advanced than that, but coated with something. But yeah, top marks though. I think it's brilliant. But yes, unfortunately, as far as actual footage of aliens go, I'm going to say this is, I don't like the word debunked, as I think it's not a case of debunking as such. More, it's incredibly implausible. If you like this video, like and subscribe for similar stuff or to show appreciation. Thanks, and I'll see you next time. And if the creator of this video does see this one, just pop a comment or something. Let me know how you've done it. I think it's brilliant.